Welcome to Inside Out. I'm Pat Smith, and this is where we take you inside state, local, and federal government to bring information out to you. Helping us do that this evening is a woman who has experience at all three of those levels. Former Councilwoman Cherri Branson, who is now running to stand as an at-large member of our Montgomery County Council.
Well,
Cherri,
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here with you today.
Thank you. Would you please tell our viewers about yourself? What is your background, your education, and what is your experience?
Well, as you said, I was the councilwoman for District 5 in 2014. I was appointed to fill a vacancy. I served for a year. I promised I would just be a placeholder, but, that I would try and provide an effective voice. So I kept that promise. But before I got to the council, I was on Capitol Hill for 23 years. I started as a part-time legislative assistant, and because I really didn't intend upon staying. But 23 years later, I retired as chief counsel for a committee on Homeland Security, the Democratic staff. So, I have of course, a BA from Vassar College, a JD from Indiana University at Bloomington, and an LLM from Emory. So, I've done quite a bit,
Certainly. And so that was back in 2014, where you accepted an appointment just to fill the seat for District 5 for 1 year.
That's right.
And you agreed at that time you wouldn't run for the post.
That's right.
So the people of District 5 could have an open election without an incumbent having a special advantage or whatever.
Yeah, and to create a level playing field for District 5.
Right.
And that was important. But I was there for an entire year, from January till December of 2014, when the council when the new council was sworn in. So, in that time I got to do, as I say, from A to Z, from agriculture to zoning, and everything in between,
Right.
Everything that the council does. I was on the education committee,
Right.
as well as the government operations committee during that time. And of course, spent a lot of time doing the budget for the county, and so it was a great experience, and it taught me a lot about what being a council member really requires. But and for some reason, I still want to do that again.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned government operations. You're heavily involved in the operation of the executive branch of the county government now.
Yes.
As the head of the procurement office.
Yes, exactly. I am currently the director of the Office of Procurement, which is a cabinet level department. We handle $1 billion in purchasing every year for the county, and that doesn't include purchasing for the schools or the college. We don't do that. So it's everything else in county government. And as a part of that, we also enforce a number of wage laws and small business, local business, minority and female-owned businesses. We try to assure that those goals are met. So this office does a great deal to make sure that county government, runs well, because you can't get things done if you can't buy stuff,
And you don't have the supplies to work with, et
Exactly.
cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
But on compliance, supervision of compliance with all these various regulations, as you mentioned, I'm not quite sure how that fit in to procurement.
It fits in because the way we're able to actually enforce a lot of the compliance laws is because we also have some jurisdiction over the contracts, right?
Sure.
So, if you're a business and we find out that you have not been paying your employees what you should have been paying them under county law, then it's very easy for me to be able to say, well, look, you still want that contract, right? I mean, and most people agree. They still want that contract. I mean, the first year we actually enforced the living wage law was and actually got damages, if you will, for the employees. We recovered over $300,000 for employees that were working on county contracts that were being underpaid.
Really?
Yes. Now, luckily, I believe that really sent a message. And the second year, we only recovered like $50,000. Really, so there wasn't, there wasn't a lot to get because people had been paid correctly. And that I think that
Cleaned
makes
it up,
yeah, I mean, that makes a huge difference in the lives of, of all the folks who work on county contracts, who are employees for these businesses. And, most importantly, it means it brings a reality to our county contracting process and fairness, because I don't have to worry about people purposely underbidding because they know they're going to shortchange their workers. I mean, so the bids reflect what is an accurate wage payment. And that makes a huge difference too, because the county does not want or need businesses who do not want to do the right thing by their workers. Because if you want to cheat your workers, you might want to cheat the county too. And so I think it not only levels the playing field, but it also elevates the standards of conduct.
And it should tell our viewers that petite little Cherri Branson has some muscle and she's not afraid to flex it.
Not afraid to use it, because what good is it if you don't use it?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Can we talk more about your experience that year on the council for budget? Because I think what people should be concerned about is we're losing, with term limits, people voted for it.
Right.
4 members of the existing council are leaving.
Right.
So it's going to put a lot of new blood on the county council with no experience, or certainly not the understanding of the inner operations of government, such as you've had the advantage of getting.
Right.
Talk about your experience with the budget.
Well, I was there for the entire budget process, and as you know, the budget comes over, from the executive. The council, gets to look at it. You have hearings, you have work sessions, you do the review of particular programs and every part of the government, with the exception of the schools, because we really don't have any control, really, over the programs and the policies of the schools. A lot of people don't realize that, but the county council cannot change the programs or the policies of the schools. When it comes to the schools budget, we basically can just vote up or down, and make make suggestions. but for everyone else, every other department, the county council is able to look at the budget, to ask questions about the various offices, the programs, how they're working, how they work together. We look at both the operational budget as well as the long-term capital budget. A lot of people don't think about both aspects, but in the local government, you have to think about not only your day-to-day operations, but your long-term capital planning. And so when I was on the council, we got to dive deep into those matters. It was the sort of the time when it was clear, or when it seemed clear, that we were coming up out of a very long recession. And so, while working in a recession is challenging when you have to figure out what you're cutting, working when you're coming out of a recession is also challenging because, there are a lot of needs that didn't get met you know, and so everybody wants, you know, some new influx of money, you know, which is totally understandable. But those are still very difficult decisions that have to be made.
But even though we were starting to come out of the recession here in Montgomery County toward the end of 2013 and into 2014, I know that many, including County Executive Leggett, have been frustrated with the slow progress of coming out of the recession. Where do we stand now? At one point back last summer, there was some discussion about a shortfall in projected revenue for the county. Did that happen?
Well, the shortfall has been taken care of, at least for the short term. There was a $130 million shortfall that was due to tax revenues that had been projected that hadn't actually been realized, you know. And so now, you know, a lot of nicks and cuts were made to figure out how to fill that gap. But quite frankly, there's still, you know, for the county and for the state, uncertainties about future projections because of the effect of the federal budget, the federal tax law. And so, you know, nobody is really, nobody totally understands how the revenue shortfalls that may occur, that will occur because of, you know, the federal tax reform, how that will actually affect state and local budgets. You know, there is some belief that, you know, state budgets will benefit in some way, but there's no requirement that any benefit be then passed along to the counties.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so, you know, it really is a period of some uncertainty. And, you know, because of that uncertainty, I think it's really important to have people on the county council who already know this process.
So, in having had the experience of representing District 5, which is over in the Tacoma Park,
Silver Spring,
southern Silver Spring area, what is it that attracts you to running to the council at large across the whole county?
Right.
And you know, a county of 1 million residents.
Right. Well, you know, first of all, it's practical. Because of term limits, there are 3 open seats at the at-large level. I mean, 4 seats total, but, you know, 3 do not have an incumbent. So that's a practical concern. But in a very real way, you know, when I was on the council and I represented District 5, I understood that there really wasn't anything that would affect the residents of District 5 that wouldn't also have effects on the residents of the rest of the county. You know, when you're a district council member, you have to represent the people in your district. But, you know, you also have to keep in mind what's best for this county. You know, and I think being an at-large council member allows you to have that big picture view. You know, we have a council that is, you know, 5 district representatives and 4 at-large members. And I think that's, there's been a lot of talk about changing that. But I really think it's best to have a good number of people on the council who are committed to looking at what's best for the whole county, and not to allow the sort of parochial interests to rule, you know. So, you know, I think because of my background, I would be very good at figuring out what's best for the entire county. You know, I'm very interested because this is, you know, up county, down county, east county, west county. We're all still one county.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly right, and it's all coming out of one budget.
Exactly.
We will be right back. It's time for us to take a short break. You're watching Inside Out. I'm Pat Smith. Here from Montgomery County, Maryland. I'm Pat Smith, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Inside Out. I'm Pat Smith, and this is where we take you inside state, local, and federal government to bring information out to you. Helping us do that tonight is a candidate for Montgomery County Council at large, Cherri Branson, who's also had the experience of serving 1 year on the council back in 2014.
Yes.
And currently with the county government is the Director of Procurement.
Yes.
Right? And that's
Yes.
a cabinet level position
Yes.
it's on.
Yes.
And I think you mentioned in the first segment, you purchase $1 billion worth of
About $1 billion a
supplies.
year. Yeah.
That's a big operation.
Yes.
It's quite a shopping list to go to the store with.
Yes.
Let me ask you, what did you experience just even in the 4 years between 2014, because you had been up on Capitol Hill 23 years, then you come back to the county. What have you noticed in the change of the demographics?
Well, you know, the county has changed a great deal since I've lived in this county for 30 years. And this is not the same county that I moved to. You know, it has changed not only racially, ethnically, and economically. That's, you know, like every other county and every other place in America, this county is also seeing the suburbanization of poverty. You know, and we have to ask, you know, we see, you know, 2,500 new students in our schools every year. I mean, that is the size of a high school that is added to our schools every year. You know, we've seen increase in the number of children who have to have free and reduced meals. So the changes in this county are not, they're not going away, you know. And so, you know, but I really do believe that if any place in America can figure out how to resolve the problems that poverty can bring to a community, it's here. You know, this county is also very rich. You know, there are a lot of very wealthy people in this county. We have a lot of beautiful and natural resources. So, you know, we have very different circumstances affecting very different groups of people. And I think our challenge as a county is to figure out how to make sure that everybody is able to benefit and to receive the kind of governmental help that they need, the kind of governmental support that they need. Doesn't mean that, you know, government can do everything for everybody, but it does mean that we pursue equity, that we figure out how our neighbors are able to make it in this county, because it does none of us any good to bring about a world or to increase a world where there are haves and there are have-nots. This
Right.
county rises.
And exactly on the point of the haves and have-not is what is being constructed for housing
Yes.
in the county, to me is somewhat frightening, because I'm saying, what is the affordability of that housing?
Yes.
Everywhere you look, up and down Key West Highway, Downtown Road, Shady Grove Road corridor, downtown Crown over in Gaithersburg, down in Silver Spring. There are all these beautiful new apartment buildings,
Right.
mostly with 1 or 2 bedroom units.
Right.
All right?
Right.
Not family units.
Right.
And with rent starting in the neighborhood of $2,500 a month.
Exactly.
Couples renting those, if there are couples renting, they're not going to be starting families where they're paying rent for $2,500 a month for 1,000 square feet of living space.
And they're probably not going to have money for a down payment, you know,
Right.
if they're paying that kind of rent.
Because
you
of the
know,
prices
because
of the houses.
Exactly.
And you need 20% down again,
Right.
now that
Right.
we've had that housing crisis.
Right.
And the median, the cost of a house is like $350.
Yeah.
You know, that's $70,000 for a down payment. How's anyone going to save $70,000 for a down payment?
Especially if you're paying $2,500 a month rent. The average price of a house in Montgomery County is like about $430, and so if and those really are largely starter homes. You know, I mean that's an incredible amount to think about, paying for a home that may need, that may need repairs, that may need rehab. We've got to do better, and the reason we have to do better is because we are actually losing people, especially public service personnel. You know, the fire, the police, the teachers. You know, we are losing people every day to our neighboring counties, Prince George's, Howard, Frederick, which feeds into the traffic problems that we have, because people
personnel are also the backbone
of our county. That's right.
Community, any community.
And if they can't afford to live here, they still work here. We've got to figure out how we can move the housing affordability and the kind of housing that most people want. People are not moving to other counties in order to live in apartments. They're moving to other counties in order to have single-family homes. And we really do have to figure out how we provide some incentives for the building community to be able to do that. We have not, we've focused a lot on zoning and density, and moderately priced dwelling units and what the percentage should be. But to me, that kind of, misses the point that we want people to get here, to settle here, and once they settle here, then they assure us a steady population flow. There's probably not a lot worse in local government than not knowing, how many people you're going to have living in your city. I mean, look at Baltimore, for instance. Baltimore has lost literally tens of thousands of people.
Correct.
I mean, and that impact on the stability of a community is amazing, and it's devastating.
Yep.
And we cannot allow that kind of impact to have its effect on Montgomery County. We have to figure out how we get people, how we use land in a way that assures that people can have affordable single-family homes developed. I mean, it used to be that that townhomes were considered sort of the starter homes, and that seems to have fallen out of fashion as far as the building community is concerned.
Right, because they can get a lot more money out of something that goes up 5-6 stories in the same footprint.
Yes.
As 10 units of townhouses.
Right.
Are the brakes being put on that at all? Or maybe I should put it this way. Is there a mandated percentage of affordable housing in every one of these luxury apartment buildings that are going up?
There is the moderately priced dwelling unit law does require that a certain percentage be set aside for people with certain income levels. The problem really is that it doesn't specify. It just gives sort of a square footage percentage, right? So it really doesn't talk about whether those are 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartments. But if you're trying to raise a family, even if you're not raising a family, if you're, a young couple, moving into a 1-bedroom apartment and then having children, knowing that there's no place for you to go. You're not going to be able to save enough. You're not going to be able to afford a house. It almost pushes you to leave this county. That's the sort of thing that we really have to figure out how we stop. nobody wants to, I mean, I'm a big believer in capitalism. I think I encourage it, but the reality is that the government is already involved in some ways, in requiring these units, in giving certain breaks for certain tax advantages. We're already involved, and so because we're already involved, I think if we figure out a way to deepen our involvement in a way that actually assures that we are building the kind of housing that supports families and communities, I think will go a long way in assuring the stability of this county.
And I think some other burdens, like there ought to be some innovative ways to keep our teachers, our firefighters, and our police officers in Montgomery County.
Yes.
And they're providing protection to these large number of residents in a development unit.
Mm-hmm.
Can't we impose on that development unit that there's a discounted rate to help keep those public employees in? I mean, I don't know. I think.
Well, I don't think we can impose it, but we can definitely figure out how we provide incentives. And that becomes sort of the place where the kind of negotiation you have to be willing to engage in becomes important. We have a development over in Silver Spring, Falklands, right, where the county actually supports direct support for. To keep those units at a moderate price, the entire development, right? We pay the landlord the difference between what he could get and what what he's currently charging, right? So there are ways to figure out how we assure that we fill the gap, if you will. There is, we can also, start asking some serious questions about where the density is occurring, because we also have to be concerned about our transportation needs. We don't have, if we don't have the kind of transportation that understands that this county is no longer a 1950s suburb where people
Right.
are, going to work 9 to 5 in another central city. We want to encourage economic development 7 days a week here in this county, and our transportation has to be a part of that solution too.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you on. We could talk for a long time about what is going in, but I think we touched on some very major points, and particularly the fact that we have 4 open seats with vacancies on the council due to term limits. I voiced to you and others what I thought it should have been staggered, like the United States Senate, something like that, so we don't have to worry about all these new folks coming on with not very much experience, and that certainly wouldn't be yourself. So I wish you the best in your candidacy.
Thank you. I
and we'll
appreciate
keep an eye
it.
out. Could you tell our viewers how they can get to your website and what your contact information is?
My website is www.branson4council.com. And I also have a Facebook page, which is pretty much the same, Branson for Council. You feel free to contact me. I'm very open to having email exchanges. The email is info@branson4council.com. And so, I am out and about most days trying to talk to people, because, one thing I've learned about a career in public service, because I've never considered myself a politician, my career is in public service, is that you cannot serve the public unless you really understand what it is that's important to them and you're willing to listen to their needs.
Councilwoman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I am Pat Smith. You've been watching Inside Out. We air here on Channel 16 on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Have a good evening.